There was no formal graduation from basic school. Some of our class went on to Pensacola, Florida for training as pilots, some to Fort Sill, Oklahoma for training as artillery officers, some to Monterey, California for language school, but the vast majority of those of us who had been selected into infantry were given 20 days leave to be followed by a report date to the West Coast for processing to Vietnam. I was one of the privileged majority who would be leading troops in combat in just a month. I felt a keen sense of irony when the Lance Corporal clerk who processed my orders turned out to be one of the officer candidates who had flunked out of my OCS class. His reward for failure would be safe stateside tour of duty behind a typewriter, and although I would not have traded places with him for anything, he was living proof of the Marine Corps axiom that the shitbirds get the easy assignments. We were in agreement, he's talking about with his wife, we were in agreement that the child would be named for my father if it happened to be a boy. On the flyleaf of the copy of his autobiography, Marine, The Life of Louis B. Chesty Puller, that he had given me when it was published years earlier, my father had written that he was the last of his line and that he wanted at least 2 grandsons from me. I had also written a standard will while at basic school, as virtually all my classmates, and although writing it was an unpleasant reminder of our uncertain future, I was glad the Marine Corps had insisted that we plan for the very worst. I remember doing that for the first time. Have you written a will?
No.
Yeah, like just it's a weird thing because when you're in the military, like they make you write a will.
Yeah.
And then before you go on deployment, you got to update your will.
Dang.
So it's. I don't make it sound like it was some kind of like dark thing.
Yeah,
but it's
something.
You know, it's just a. I remember when I was younger, I kind of was like almost comical about it.
Yeah.
And then when I got older and we were going to war, wasn't quite so comical.
Yeah, no kidding.
They're at a wedding, not theirs, but someone else's. In the officers' club, I saw a young captain whose leg had been so badly deformed by a war wound that I found it remarkable that the limb was still capable of bearing weight. I said nothing to Toddy about the anatomical miracle I'd witnessed when I returned to my seat, but unnerved by the sight, I also wasted no time in tossing down several glasses of wine. And again, I skipped over some of this stuff. He likes to drink. And you can see even with that right there, he drank a ton when he was in college with his fraternity brothers and whatnot. And when something unnerves him a little bit, he takes a lot of comfort in drinking. Now he's leaving for Vietnam. He's first going to leave his parents, saying goodbye to them. And here he is with his father. As we stood facing each other, beneath the spreading boughs of a weeping willow tree in the backyard of my boyhood home, the alarming thought crossed my mind that I might never see this suddenly fragile old man again. Not because I might die in Vietnam, but because he might not survive my tour. He tried to tell me for the 1,000th time the parable of the Spartan mother who, on sending her own son off to war, advised him to come back with his shield or on it. But he was unable to complete the quote. His final words trailed off and his shoulders shook, and he took me in his arms, and we both tried to take from each other the solace and strength that had suddenly abandoned us. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, we broke our embrace, and my mother led him back into the house with tears streaming down both their cheeks. It was the first time I had ever seen my father cry. On the trip up Route 17, I began to have the distinct feeling that my psyche was unraveling. I had not seen my wife smile in days, could not stand even to be near those few people in my life to whom I had the most intense attachments, and my father's tears had completely unnerved me. He goes through the scene, saying goodbye to his wife, and he says, when Shakespeare wrote that parting is such sweet sorrow, he had obviously never left a pregnant wife with whom he was deeply in love to go off and fight in a war. As soon as my plane became airborne, I ordered 2 scotches on the rocks and finished them in rapid succession.